Well, it looks like the theater wars have officially begun. I'm sure you guys have seen this by now, but earlier this week, Universal, the distributor of Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, put out an article in the Wall Street Journal where they talk about how much success they've had with the Trolls World Tour home video release that they did 3 weeks ago. The article itself isn't anything crazy, but the interesting thing that's really getting people talking is the fact that Trolls World Tour has only been available for 3 weeks, and in that time, it's been rented at $20 over 5 million times, and that's given Universal enough revenue for it to make more money than the first Trolls movie did in its 5-month campaign in theaters. I'm honestly going back and forth on whether or not this is surprising, considering that Trolls is a kids movie and parents are stuck at home with their kids right now, so they probably want a new colorful movie for their kids to watch. So it's really not that big of a surprise that at $20 it's been rented that much. What is really getting people upset though, and what is starting what I'm calling the theater wars, is a statement towards the very end of the article. Basically, an executive from NBC Universal said as soon as theaters reopen, we expect to release movies in both formats. Pretty much as soon as the article came out, AMC, which is the biggest theater chain in the entire world, sent back a letter that said, going forward, AMC will not license any Universal movies in any of our 1,000 theaters globally on those terms. And when he says globally, he specifically means theaters in the United States, Europe, and the Middle East. And it didn't take long after this letter came out for Regal Cinemas, which is another huge theater chain, to say that when they open up again, they will also not be showing Universal movies. And of course, this also affects the theater chains Cineworld and Odeon, which are just renamed AMC and Regal over in the UK, as my friend Paul from Heavy Spoilers reminded me. Now, the reason this means something to you as a Halloween fan is, as I already mentioned, Universal is the distributor of Halloween Kills. So if this sticks and Universal movies are not being shown in AMC theaters or Regal theaters, it could be a lot harder to see Halloween Kills in theaters if they open up by October. But before we jump the gun and get really upset like pretty much everyone else on Twitter is, we need to take a look at what Universal actually said. That first statement is really vague and doesn't actually tell us anything, but thankfully since then they've elaborated a little bit by saying that they absolutely believe in the theatrical experience and made no statement to the contrary. As we stated earlier, going forward we expect to release future films directly to theaters as well as on PVOD when that distribution outlet makes sense. So there's a pretty big group of people out there who are taking this to mean every single Universal movie, from Halloween Kills and Jurassic World Dominion and Fast 9 all the way down to something smaller like The Forever Purge, are going to be day and date released on VOD the same day they come out in theaters. So if Halloween Kills comes out on October 16th this year, it'll be on VOD October 16th. But I really don't think that's what they're saying. I think what they actually mean is now that they've taken this mid-tier kids movie, which is Trolls World Tour, and released it on home video and turned a profit, when they were scared they were going to make a profit in the first place, they're comfortable taking other mid-tier movies that are equivalent and releasing them on home video for $20 rentals. And to be totally honest, I think this is a really smart move. I don't think it would necessarily work for something like Jurassic World Dominion and Halloween Kills though, like I said in my last video. But there are other movies I think would benefit from having an early home video release, like The Prodigy or Underwater or Happy Death Day to You or Ready or Not. You know, these smaller movies that are kind of a gamble to put out in theaters in the first place. Like, I'm not saying these movies won't do well if you release them just in theaters, because they can and have done well in the past. I think Ready or Not is a great example of that, but you have to think about it this way. When you have a movie like Spider-Man Far From Home coming out around the beginning of July, and then you have Crawl, which is out around the same time, people who have to spend $20 on a movie ticket are going to weigh Spider-Man versus Crawl, and I guarantee you pretty much every time they're going to go with Spider-Man. They might even go see Spider-Man multiple times in that case. Crawl is obviously a bad example because that movie turned a pretty big profit, but that's just the best one I could come up with. So if I'm Universal or Warner Brothers or Disney, even now that they own Fox, and I have this mid-tier movie that I can't really find a place for on my release schedule, I'm not just going to throw it out in theaters and cross my fingers that it turns a profit. I'm going to take a look at releasing it on home video at the same time so I can actually have a chance of it breaking even or making me money. The timing proposition would also benefit these movies if they release earlier, in the sense that they'll be able to use the marketing budget from the theatrical run, which generates way more hype because it's so much bigger. By the time the movies end up coming out on DVD, the budgets they use to market them are way smaller, and they don't generate nearly as much hype. And another huge reason I don't think any of these distributors will stop releasing their movies in theaters anytime soon is that yesterday the Academy announced that if you want to win an Oscar, you have to have your movie in theaters for at least 7 days. So now that we've covered all the baseline facts on what's happening, let's talk about Halloween Kills. And before you jump down my throat in the comments, I understand that Halloween Kills is not on the same level as Jurassic World Dominion and Fast 9, but Universal's expectation of massive profits is already there because Halloween Kills is a sequel to a movie that made $250 million on a $10 million budget. So taking what I just said into consideration, if Halloween Kills does open this October in theaters, the chances of it also releasing on VOD the same day are pretty much slim to none. And as for whether or not you'll be able to see it at your local AMC or Regal, I also don't think that's set in stone just yet either. Other than the fact that AMC is almost bankrupt and just had to take out a $500 million loan, the reason I think them and Regal are going so nuclear right now with these stances is they want to have a meeting with Universal, so Universal has to set in stone what they're going to do with these releases. They won't be able to tiptoe around it, release some movies on VOD and some others just release in theaters. You know, it's like they want to make sure that they have rules in place. Not releasing Universal's movies would obviously hurt these theater chains because they have some pretty big blockbusters, but it also would hurt Universal. This Trolls release is getting spun in a very positive way, but it didn't make that much money where they could just not release in theaters anymore. This threat really gives theater chains a leg up to say, yeah, you can release your movies earlier on VOD, but it can't be the same day. You have to wait like 3 weeks or something like that until we've made all of our money, and Universal has a reason to listen because they want their movies to be in AMC theaters. I feel like telling people who don't want to go to the movie theater they have to wait 3 weeks instead of something like 3 months is a very fair compromise, and it's one that AMC will probably take because they want people to come to the theater so they don't go bankrupt. And speaking of the virus, it's literally the only reason this didn't happen sooner, because when Universal released The Hunt, The Invisible Man, and Trolls World Tour on Amazon Prime, theater chains didn't blow up because they said it was an experiment to see if they could recoup some of the money they lost when all the theater chains closed down while their movies were in theaters. But that pretty much covers it. This was an extremely dense video, so if you stuck around to the end, I have to commend you and say thanks. If you're looking for something else to watch, I highly recommend the video I just did on the Hellraiser series that's coming to HBO Max from David Gordon Green and Michael Dougherty. And if you're really feeling generous, maybe hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Anyway guys, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Shape on.